Thankful to bring you episode 16 of the HipHopHumboldt podcast. It's your boy David. Thank you for joining me. I'm sitting here right now. I'm lucky enough to sit here right now with the Humboldt County legend, DJ Just One. What's up, Just One?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming out to the studio, doing this interview. You've got a lot of history in this county, in other states. I'm talking East Coast. I've heard about some of your exploits that you've gone and done from way back. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'd love to get into whatever part of history that you've been making since you started making music over 30 years ago, has it been?
Yeah, I've been DJing since 89, I guess, 90. So it's like around 30-something years I've been into DJing, but production and making music has been since, it's about 30 years.
Nice.
Yeah, right around that time I started getting into making beats, you know, from original little samplers that'd be on mixers, you know. Mm-hmm. Single 1 8-second sampler you get in your little DJ mixer, and that was the first, like, looping. You know?
Nice.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up, man. And so you took that skill with sound and turned it into quite a long career as a sound engineer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess that ended up being what I ended up doing a lot of. But initially I got into sound engineering just to be able to do better work with my production. You know, I started making music for like stuff with my friends in high school, and we would go to the studio, and some engineers were mad cool. You know, like I talked to you before about this dude Al that, like, you know, was the first dude I worked with. He was cool as hell, but, like, you know, he was in Brooklyn, and then we started working in a studio that was in Staten Island where I grew up, and the engineer was like kind of hard to work with. You know what I mean? And it kind of like made it not fun in the studio at times because he was just controlling and still not making it as dope as we sort of heard it, you know? Mm-hmm. So I started getting into the engineering for that too. And then, then I went to school for it, but it took a few years until that point, yeah.
Nice. And so you went to school for it out in New York?
Yeah, in Manhattan, a place called Institute of Audio Research. It's like a 1-year program, you know, where you learn engineering and a lot of the technical side of it. And, you know, I learned a lot in that year, but that place basically opened me up to an internship at Unique Recording, which was a bigger studio, you know, and I don't think I would have been able to get that internship without having the little recommendation from the school to be in their little intern program. And that internship taught me a ton of it, because it was like almost 6 months or something, 9 months of like learning under engineers that were doing big things, you know, and I was just like a fly on the wall, just, you know, learning or whatever. So it was cool. It was really cool to be a part of.
In the heart of where in the heart of where hip hop, you know, was created. Yeah.
I mean, it was some of the same studios, you know, that some, you know, the plaques that they had on their wall at the studio were like, you know, Nas and Tupac and Biggie. Like there was all these legendary albums that, you know, that we are basically like the holy grail of hip hop. Basically, were like, some of them were recorded in this space. And granted, I wasn't there for all of them, but I got to work with the likes of DMX and Rough Riders and that whole camp, and Nelly's first album, and just like a bunch of random albums that were cool learning process to see how they, you know, go from like a studio session to a song everywhere, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was it's what taught me the most about like making music. I feel like was that initial, you know, that was the groundwork, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now at that institute, right? It was the audio
Institute of Audio Research. It was
Institute of Audio Research. When you were doing that program, about how many people were in that program with you?
That's a hard one to say. I mean, there was probably like a couple hundred people in each class. You know, it wasn't a huge alumni. It was the whole school took up basically one building in, you know, like where NYU is in the village, and in an area where there's tons of schooling everywhere, but they just have this like one little building, like 4 floors of offices and studios and classrooms and stuff. But
Nice.
it was, you know, it's cool in that sense because, you know, it's it's not something you want to learn in a lecture setting. You know what I mean? You want to be like only a few people in the room, everyone getting to get hands on with the equipment and being able to like interact with the person teaching. You know,
Yeah, for
so
real.
it was definitely cool in that sense. Yeah.
That's real dope. Like you, I mean, I don't know if either I'm just not exposed to, or just like I haven't heard about so much stuff in California or maybe the West Coast, like schools like that, where you're just like learning, just really immersive on an immersive level,
Hmm.
audio. You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple specialty schools. I mean, this this was like more geared towards engineers learning all the technical side of everything, not as much like production and like making of music, but more like how do you deal with the technical side of building a studio, wiring it, and also the mechanics of how it all works. And it was in probably the last phase of a lot of the analog stuff that was going on, you know. So I got to learn some of the cool analog stuff before everything switched over to digital, you know. And you know, obviously some of that analog stuff's still around, people still use it, you know, but it's fewer and farther between, so there's less lessons there commonly, you know.
Yeah, but it's the skill that's involved and the knowledge that you've learned with being able to do it analog. You know what I mean? It takes it to the level where you have skills before it went digital,
Hmm.
and now at this level, it just transferred into the digital age with you
Hmm.
having even more strength.
Yeah, yeah, it helps to know what some of the original pieces did before they were put into like a plug-in format, you know what I mean? So you
Fully.
kind of know what you're trying to get out of it, you know, with certain EQs and certain compressors that I always used forever. Like when I use the digital version, like on the computer, I have an idea of where I want to start, you know, and where I'd like it to end up, you know. So it definitely helps. But still, there's a learning curve to everything. So you know, you have to relearn the digital version of it, you know. But it definitely helps.
Yeah. And like I was saying earlier, the audio engineers are really in the sound process. I mean, the most crucial player in the chain,
Mm-hmm.
of making a song, you know, sound like you want it to at the end without a good audio engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might be out of luck.
Yeah, for sure. You can take a really good track and ruin it, you know, and you could take a track that's you know needs a lot of work. You know, comes in sounding all crazy, blowing speakers and stuff, and then you could turn it around and make it into an amazing piece. And there's definitely like having a good relationship with your engineer as a producer is huge. Is huge. And in some cases, the producer and the engineer are the same people. You know, modern times, like a lot more people know how to do it pretty well that are just doing it right out of their house. So there's a lot of good stuff that's getting done like that. But if you do work with an engineer, a good relationship is important because they'll take your shit to the next level, you know?
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after you trained and learned in New York, when you were first, before you came out here, you trained and learned, and then you came out to Humboldt,
Hmm.
or did you go to L.A.?
No, actually, when I first moved to California, I moved into Lake Tahoe.
Tahoe. Okay, that's right.
As an original plan, I was going to spend the winter in Tahoe and snowboard, and just have like a little break from. I was engineering like crazy 60, 70 hour weeks, like just not getting much sleep and just going super hard. And I wanted to. Um, I visited Tahoe on a trip that came out to the west coast of Seattle to record an album, and while I was out here, I came down to Tahoe to visit and just loved it. You know, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to spend a little winter out here. following winter, and one of my friends that's from the East Coast had a place, and he was my boy John. He put me onto a room, and I just was like, all right, spend that winter out there and see what happens. You know, like maybe I'll stay, maybe I'll go back to New York. I was doing good in New York with engineering and DJing and doing what I was doing, but I just wanted to, you know, try to check something out for a little, you know, for a bit. And one of the dudes that I was friends with, he was good friends with this dude from Humboldt that lived up the block from us, you know. And that dude Jubal, he was planning to make an album, but hadn't done it. You know, he'd been writing bars for a while and wanted to get an album done. And so we had always planned to like try to link and make something happen. So that he was my first link to Humboldt, you know. And so when I moved out there, I ended up getting a job at this studio in Reno called Sierra Sonics. And that was like my first engineering job when I moved out to Tahoe. And I met these guys and they wanted to record an album. I was like, yo, I got this new studio I'm working at. They'll give us a deal because I just started working there, you know, and I'll just get the employee rate or whatever. But they gave us a decent deal on the space, and then Swizzlow and a lot of the members from the band Spank, and you know, Garth Vader and Cat Lanky and Adam Brandt, they all came out, and like we started formulating the album at my house in Tahoe, you know, and then we went in the studio and you know, and did the Humboldt County Freestyle Kings album. And that was like my first introduction to Humboldt. And then from there, after we did that album, Adam Brandt was like started booking shows for the crew, and he's like, yo, you gotta come DJ with, you know, come DJ with the band. So it was like a full live hip hop band, you know, with 3 MCs and the DJ, you know. And that's what my first introduction to Humboldt was, like coming out to do like a country party, you know. And then we started doing shows up here. You know, was Tomo's, you know, which is now Mazzotti's, you know. Mm-hmm. But the original Tomo's, yeah.
Right.
And that was my first introduction to Humboldt. And then I spent that summer coming out working, and then I started working with Potluck a little bit and DJing for them sometimes. And that was my first couple years in Humboldt, was like living sort of in Tahoe and in Humboldt, and going back and forth. And then I moved up and lived with Potluck for the second summer, and did recording with them and Hefe and did a bunch of shows and touring and stuff with them. It was a good time.
That's crazy.
And yeah.
Now, meanwhile, on the Freestyle Kings album that you had produced that, right? You were doing production on there.
Yeah. It was like I had a bunch of beats that I had done either in New York or right when I first moved out to Tahoe. And then Swizz had some ideas that he had. And then, to be honest, it was like we kind of... I had some tracks where he played on my tracks, and some where I just kind of started the beat, and then Swizz, like I started like the drum beat or whatever, and then Swizz would come up with the keys, and this is how we've kind of come up with our formula that we still do to this day. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where I'll start off something, and then he'll build off it, and then I'll build a little more off it, and then I'll mix it and edit a little bit, and then, you know, we have a really cool dynamic in the studio in that sense, and we basically sat and built for a couple of days before we went in the studio and built a bunch of tracks, and these guys started writing to him, like, you know, right away. And, you know, like Garth is a beast of a writer, you know, and then Lanky and Adam, they all, like, you know, went to work, and my boy Jubal, he was also a part of it. He went to work too, and they did their thing. It was cool.
That's dope.
Yeah, it was a fun, like, first experience of meeting a bunch of, you know, people that lived in Cali and, you know, kind of represented a cool part of the culture, you know, here.
For real. And so the Freestyle Kings did multiple albums, so you were producing for a while there, or no?
No, they actually did like one album that was an actual album, and they were probably together for 2 years. You know, they were together a bit before the album, but never had, I don't think ever had like an album or a release. But that was the only album, and we did other songs, and we like from doing a bunch of touring, we like figured out other songs that we did too that started off as freestyles and kind of turned into songs that we were going to eventually record. But the group ended up breaking up. It was like a lot of people that ended up kind of getting pulled in different directions, and
That happens.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
yeah. There's probably a lot more to it, but that's like you know the run that we had was a couple years, and we did Reggae on the River, and we did a bunch of really big, super fun shows, and it was a bunch of great parties. So I'm super thankful for all that, for sure, and it introduced me to a ton of the people that I still hang out with and know to this day. From little backwoods parties that we would set up, and it was it was like I feel like there was not many people doing like sound system parties in the middle of nowhere, and we would like build a stage for the party that day. You know what I mean? And like it's kind of stuff some Humboldt kids will do, where they're just like, all right, we're gonna build the whole shit out. We're gonna pull a generator up, and we're just gonna turn it up.
Yeah.
And there's some of the greatest parties.
Yeah.
Was my sort of introduction to Humboldt.
That's dope.
Yeah, man. But yeah, then I moved back to New York in 2001. My dad had gotten sick, and he needed someone to help take care of him. So I moved back there, and continued engineering and doing music and stuff, but was also like living with my dad and taking care of him. He about a year and a half later, he passed away, and I stayed in New York for maybe like another few months, 6 months after that or something, and then I moved to LA because my lady at the time was getting her master's out there, so I went out there, and that was like coming back to Cali. I went there just try something different again, sort of too, and I was engineering at some good places already, so I knew that my references were good to at least get me in the door somewhere, and I started working at this studio called Studio Atlantis, which is like a 2-room facility in Hollywood, East Hollywood, and it had some really cool people that came through there, and it was a real fun experience on an LA level. I worked with Johnny J, who was like Tupac's producer, and it was like a whole culture of like LA hip hop that I was learning. We were recording a bunch of Napoleon from the Outlaws.
Yeah.
And doing a bunch of his stuff as well.
Man.
And
it's crazy.
So like the little bits of history, like Johnny J was bringing in like Tupac camcorder footage. You know what I'm saying? Of Tupac in the studio, hanging out, making stuff. And it was like, all this raw footage, but it was just like, for me, like it was everything I was hoping to like kind of experience on a as like a LA rap fan, even though I'm from the East Coast, like Pac and, E and NWA, like these dudes are legends, so it's like being able to see some of that stuff firsthand and see how Johnny J's process was. He was an amazing producer. Rest in peace, man. It was cool. It was really cool to work with, and and that linked me with some of those guys, and then from that I started working with Little Eazy-E, Eazy-E's son, and I engineered his whole first album pretty much, and did a little bit of co-production. My boy DL, this dude Deshaun, he produced a lot of the stuff, but I engineered a bunch of that. It was a real cool experience from him getting to meet Ice Cube and Mac 10 and the DOC and all these dudes that are like just West Coast legends,
For real.
So it was like I was very fortunate to be able to spend a few years during that time, working with those guys in the studio just as an engineer, not even on a production level, but it helped, sharpen my production sword,
Yeah.
Sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thankful for it, man. Thankful for sure.
I mean, you've been embedded in music on so many levels. That's crazy, man. You were telling me too that
Thankful.
Yeah, like the studios that you were working at in New York were, one of them was close by to where Biggie grew up, right? And then another one was right on Times Square.
Yeah, the very first studio that we would go rent at was on St. James Place, which is like in Brooklyn where Biggie grew up, you know, like, and the studio was whatever, like right, you know, right on that same block, and just in this guy's apartment. This guy LT, he was a producer and an engineer for years. Taught me so many lessons. You know, he was like the first engineer that was kind of like cool and like willing to show like the young cats like, this is how you do it, you know what I mean? Like we were all like 15 and 16 and just, you know, thought we knew everything but didn't know shit, you know, like, and that's kind of how it is, I think, you know, but he was mad cool about it. He could tell our enthusiasm, and he put us on to a lot of stuff. And the first keyboard I bought was because he had one and he showed me how to use it, you know, and it was a Kurzweil, and, you know, I still have that keyboard, you know, and it was like at the time it was the world to us, you know.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then the one on Times Square was called Unique Recording, and that space was around since like the 70s. And they were like one of the first studios to have like all the MIDI synthesizers and stuff. Like one of the first studios to have like a full MIDI room where it just has racks and racks of all the old analog keyboards and synthesizers and stuff.
Crazy.
You know, so it was a really cool place to intern.
Man. Yeah, man, that's some cool cred right there, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm thankful. I got to work with a bunch of cool heads there.
And that's so cool to me because that's like bridging, not bridging the gap, but just, you know, you've worked in dope spots on the East Coast and the West Coast, you know?
Yeah. I'm, like I said, I was really thankful to get immersed in LA and be like around some of these people that like helped shape a lot of what the sound is out there, you know?
For real.
You know, the DOC was one of the coolest dudes to work with, you know? And he's a vast knowledge of music and funny as hell, and like it was really cool working with him for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And Pen Game Strong, man.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He's like a general, you know what I mean? Everyone gives him his respect for sure.
That's crazy. Man, and you were saying that at one point, right, you were working at Sierra Sonics, or was it recording?
Well,
both.
I mean, I was the initial job was as like an engineer there, you know, not doing any production or anything. And then because I just got the job there and these guys wanted to record an album, I said, you know, let's go record at this new place I just started working at, you know, and that was actually my first long gig there. I did like one day where I did one thing there. But my first big session at the studio after I got the job was a job that I brought in, you know. So the studio was stoked. They liked me right away. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's dope.
And then I got like some jobs after that, but it wasn't like I was getting a lot more DJing gigs and a lot more going to tour with Freestyle Kings, and I started like doing a little bit more of that, and and kind of going back and forth, and I still worked at Sierra Sonics, but it wasn't like it was never a full-time gig for me, you know. I had a little studio, a little basic setup in my house for me to work and do production and stuff like that. And then, you know, we went in the studio as we needed it. And then when I moved to Humboldt for the summers, like I was working at Pollock Studio, and they had a nice setup there, you know. And then we were working at Hefe Studio. I don't know if you know Hefe.
I've heard the name, yeah.
From NoFX, the guitarist from NoFX.
Oh yeah, Swizz was telling me about him, yeah.
So he has a studio at his place, and that was where a lot of Potluck did a lot of their stuff. So I would work there a lot with him, and to be honest, me and Underrated would be there a lot, just like working on stuff, you know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man, that's Humboldt like history right there.
Yeah, man, it was some fun times we had at that spot for sure. Yeah, man. And yeah, we did some cool music too.
Oh heck yeah, man! I'm thinking about so after the Freestyle Kings, you were just producing for different people around here in general, or was there like
Yeah, well, I was I from working with the Freestyle Kings, I met Eli. He came and like freestyle with us a few times when he was like super young. I mean, he must have been like 15 or 16. You know what I mean? And he was just had bars from the jump. You know what I mean? And he would
mm-hmm,
just like I don't know. He tore it down a bunch of times where it like came out of nowhere. This kid just gets on and just rips it. You know, it was real cool. So then I had like a little bit of a relationship from there, and then met some of the other crew from that. But it wasn't until like I kind of started when I moved back to Cali. Eli started coming down to LA, and I would come up and visit Humboldt. Because I still had a lot of friends up here, and we would kind of go back and forth. Um, and then I got to know Mika and Paul and some of the other people that they were kind of like having their ciphers with, and you know what I mean, like
mm-hmm.
the dudes that they were starting to do music with, and then yeah, and then Eli and Mika both came down, and Paul, MC Problematic, they all came down to LA and recorded a bunch of stuff with either me or with Swizz and a couple studios we had access to, or the studio that was at my house. You know what I mean? And then we pulled together those albums, and that was like the start of us doing albums. And then and then after those albums got done, we kind of formed a group called Subliminal Sabotage,
Oh yeah.
or Subsab. And so like I don't know what the exact years, but maybe like '03, '04, something like that. I started coming up, and I would DJ for Subsab and for Eli and Mika and Paul and the crew. And Swizz was kind of like the captain of the music, as always, and kind of like help compose the band always, and kind of organize all that, which is always impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then I'd come up and do shows with them, and kind of always came back and forth to Humboldt and LA, and the dudes from LA would come down and visit, and we'd rock. But then I ended up like moving back up here like around '06, '07, somewhere around then. I spent about 4 years in LA, and then moved up here to move to Southern Humboldt, and just try some different job opportunities and life living. It's a hustle in LA, as you know, and it's a crazy money game. But
For real.
I did really well. I had some bad invoices, some record labels fronting on money, and some shit mess with me that kind of put me back. Virgin Records still owes me like fucking $7,000 or something, like just
Mm-hmm.
stupid stuff, and then I got a my boy was like gave me the invite, like, yo, come up, I'll help you find some work, and we'll kind of help you set shit straight, and he did, and I came up and I just grinded, and just worked and did a little bit of everything, until I shit, like, lived out of my truck for a bit, and then eventually, uh, eventually got like a room and a house, and built a studio in my boy Jubal's spot, and he's the one that did SHC clothing, and he was the one that started SHC Records with me, and
Oh
and all the
nice.
homies, and he helped put together the Freestyle Kings album, and he helped, like, he would always just help everybody with music all the time, what I mean, kind of dude he was, for sure, and still is. And like, it's it was cool, and that's what the next albums kind of like got done, was like at that house in Bembo, and then we moved the studio eventually to the shop in town, you know, but and that's where it's been for like the last 10, 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah,
That's dope.
it was it was different.
So you were producing for Subsab.
Yeah, so like I mean, what Subsab's material mostly was like a mix up of. It's kind of started as like a mix up of all the songs, a bunch of the songs that we did on Eli's first album and on Mika Son's first album and MC Problematic's first album. Like they had a bunch of songs, and then we would pull some of those songs together and put them into a set. And then we had songs that we kind of started maybe either as a freestyle song, or we just had the basics, or Eli had a hook, or like, you know what I mean? Like it started off somewhat of in a bit of a freestyle mode too, you know? So then we had all these core songs that we had off our albums that we would do, you know, and we would make it into like almost like a mixtape. And that's what Subsab kind of was in a way, you know? And, you know, maybe we would take a verse off of one person's shit and like let somebody else get on there that wasn't on the original. You know what I mean? So to just kind of keep everybody involved and stuff.
Oh, I love that. That's dope.
Yeah, and these guys were all super proficient with their bars, so we were able to just kind of like work it out. And then Barrel was another dude who was in Subsab as well that would like sing, and he'd be like the hook guy and, you know, do more of the singing stuff. And it was a cool group of musicians and vocalists, you know.
That's dope. Now, how long was Subsab like together and making music?
Oof, that's a good question. Because some of the songs that we did, we recorded at like in Cutton at Eli's apartment, Eli and Garth's apartment, you know, and Swizz's apartment. They all kind of like had a spot over there in Cutton that we recorded some of those songs too. But it was like, I'd say probably 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years.
Nice.
It's really hard for me to remember the exact, because we kind of started doing some stuff, you know, before I even moved up here, and then I mean maybe even like 4 years. I don't even know, man. To be honest, I gotta pick Eli's brain about it because he'd remember better than I would. But it was a cool little run. It was just, you know, another also big group of people, you know. You know, it's like we all are all cool with each other and we all still work together, but I think like that many people was also it's just a very difficult thing to keep going unless you have some sort of like, you know, maybe some big sort of push or something blows up that kind of helps employ other people to help the situation run. You know, but like we literally do everything ourselves, and you know, it's a lot of dynamics to work with when you have that many artists and band members and everyone's good,
right?
So like everybody feels like, you know, there's a lot of like energy getting moved around, you know. But super thankful for that too. We had some amazing shows, you know. Played a bunch of big shows, played some cool small shows. I mean, like, you know, it was a great experience. I'm thankful for it.
Heck yeah. That's dope.
Yeah, man.
And so after Subsab, were you involved with like any, because I know you've just been producing just nonstop, right? And then you've also been doing a lot of videography too, right? I definitely want to get into some of that, you know. Around when did you kind of, that's one of the things I love about creatives around here, man, is that you can really maximize your skills, you know, in certain areas that really interest you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like if you're into video and videography, you know, there's a lot of opportunity. I really think, that's an untapped resource almost around here. Is like the cool art that happens, right? There's a lot of money that goes into art, and having video, you know, in this short form video world nowadays with TikTok and Instagram and Reels and everything, like people are really seeing the value of that, right? We just had like, I don't know if you might have seen it, but like that special on Netflix that like was Cootie's footage of Kanye West, right, from way back, right?
Totally.
Like
I watched it. It was cool.
It was dope, right? Like people are seeing the value of that footage, and I think that that's something that around here with the cool events, Kinetic, and all kinds of stuff that happens, like I think there's opportunity to get really good footage and reels of that, together to really archive a lot of the cool stuff that happens in Humboldt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do what I can for sure. Like when it came about for me is that we were doing tons of music for years, and then we never really had any visuals for any of it. We never had any music videos. We never had any like anything cool. It was always like some kind of camcorder footage or some cheap cell phone footage or something. But I got into it to try to figure out how to get, do music videos for our stuff. The first video I did was one for Eli called Abre los Ojos, and it's like which means open your eyes, and it's on YouTube. You can check it, whatever, and that was my very first attempt at figuring all that stuff out, and it was like came from the need to be able to like have visuals for our stuff, and the fact that we don't have we don't have the budget really to be like paying for big video budgets, especially at the time. 10 years ago, the video budgets were even more, and it was a lot,
For real.
So I was just like, all right, let's get a camera and we'll eventually get better, So then I started doing that, and that kind of brought me into like figuring out how to do promos for companies and reels and all this other stuff,
Nice.
But it stemmed from the need to make music videos, and that's still the thing I think I have probably the most fun doing,
So how long would you been saying you've done videography around here?
Since I think the video with Eli started in 2015.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere around then. Yeah. So it's I wouldn't say it was like on any sort of professional level. It was like me figuring it out back then, I've had a camera forever. I've been into photography forever. I've had some old 35 millimeter cameras with film and dog was like chewing on something.
She's tearing that cat thing up.
That's all good. The puppy. What a cool dog.
It's gonna get big.
Yeah. Congrats.
Man, I know. That's, for me, somebody that doesn't know how to do the keys, it's kind of helpful.
Cool. I'll search stuff online too to just like find just different chord ideas, because you'll tend to like when you go to the keyboard to make a beat, you'll tend to go to the same chords that you're like comfortable playing, and then you kind of know what keys work together. So it's good to just get a different idea, some little templates to work off of.
Yep. Yeah, I used to play the guitar years back, and so guitar tabs, right, was the easy man's way, right? Like
I'm learning some quick licks. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. Around when did you start your East Branch Media?
Well, I mean, it was I didn't really like put a name on it really until I kind of did a couple videos. Really, I had always like toyed around with the idea and the name, because I live on the East Branch of the Eel River.
Oh, okay.
And my house is like right on the East Branch, and the fact that I'm like from the East Coast, and the SHC is the main logo for the SHC is the tree, the SHC tree. So it's like East Branch, whatever. It's like a branch of the SHC fam,
That's dope.
And so it all made sense, but it wasn't until like I started like doing a lot of like farm videos and do a lot of promo videos for other companies and stuff that I kind of like pulled it together as an actual business, and kind of got the logo done, and put it in motion and invested more into it. I worked a bunch with Redwood Roots on a lot of the farms that they work with, and they're a distribution company down south, owned by a good friend of mine, and like they kind of like together we did a whole bunch of stuff, and it made my skill level a lot more diverse than just doing like music videos. Kind of forced me to like learn things a few different ways, and it was a big part of my learning process and that stuff. Lots of YouTube videos, and like what I mean, lots of tutorials figuring out how to do all of the advertising side of stuff and the graphic animation and all the other stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a fun process, and like now I'm working on a lyric video for one of Eli and Mika's songs, and like a lot of the stuff I learned from all that is like helping in my, you know, edit of this, you know, which is like it's a real fun undertaking, but it was, you know, another part of the process, you know. It's like I can pay somebody to make a lyric video for us, you know, or I can spend a couple days figuring it out, you know what I mean? And that's been kind of the deal for me with a lot of things, you know. Our budgets are not much, if not anything, you know. We're just investing in ourselves a lot of times, so like, you know, it's I have the computer, I have the program, let me figure this out, you know.
Yeah. And then you can use it again when you need to do another lyric video, you know.
Yeah, and then yeah, I learned a bit of a template of how I should do it, you know, and in the future, and the next one is definitely going to be faster, and it's kind of like been like that with every music video. I'll edit it a little bit quicker, or you know, knowing what to film and planning things out a little bit more, all that stuff. It's like it becomes more natural as you do it, but you got to learn in the process and just do it and accept that you're going to get some things wrong and just keep doing it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's how you learn, really, and get better and better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. As a digital creator myself, I got a lot of respect for people that are really dialing things down. You know, like you see a lot of different, you know, just creators out there, whether it's on all kinds of platforms, live streaming on Twitch and YouTube, all kinds of different things. But you see the productions that are dialed. You can see the people that are taking the time into making sure they've got the right hardware, into making sure they've got the right lighting set up, and
Yeah.
you know, really dialing a scene. And I got respect for people like you who know how to do that. You've been trained on that, on at least on the audio level of how to dial a studio in, you know, early, and
Yeah.
just had so much experience building up to the point where
Yeah.
like you'd be able to help a lot of different people. And you've already done that by production and by, you know, just showing folks how it's done. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's folks around here that have been making music that have been watching you over the years and like, oh, so this is how I do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, there's definitely some people that you know, I mean, you know, grew up listening to more of like the people that I produce with, and getting inspired off their stuff. You know, to go have their freestyles and start making music in their little home studios and stuff. For sure, I've definitely heard some cool stories, and there's some people out there that got some cool styles that live in the hills out here, and just a matter of just kind of getting their stuff out there a little more, you know. But there's a lot of talent out here. That's one of the things I've always loved. Like, you know, you'll be out in the middle of nowhere and meet some dude who just happens to be like the sickest guitar player ever. You know what I mean? And he's just your homie never told you that he played guitar, and just turns out like he's ridiculously good. You know, and it's just like, it's always been fun for me to bring people like that in the studio and sort of like, you know, like tap into that, like some of the cool, you know, people that are in their like own little bubble doing their thing, but are just super talented at it, you know. And it's a bit of what Humboldt's like, kind of a bit. You know, there's so many cool artists out in the hills out here. Thankful to be able to like see and you know, be a part of any of it.
It's a beautiful community on so many levels, man.
For sure it is.
You know, one of the more recent projects, right, that you've had a heavy hand in. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of projects that you've had your hand in recently. Two that I'm really just like pulling off as most recent and big ones being King Epic, Knack One's EP, and The Write Up.
Yeah, man. Well, both of those I was super thankful to be a part of. I was thankful Knack sent me sent me a couple tracks to do cuts on, and I like, you know, did some cuts and like sent it to him, and he had a mix, and like we all did it in like a very quick. It was very quick the way it all got done. It was really cool, and I was just glad to see it out there, and super fun. Knack's always fun to work with. Like I think the first bunch of times that we worked together, it was on more of just like a cipher, you know, thing where I was like playing tracks, and he was, and a bunch of people were spitting bars, and he was always the one that's just like, he's the general. Like he's like a track and field star on the mic. Sit there, he can rap like 8 minutes straight without even stopping for a second, like it's nothing.
Yep.
And then give someone a verse, and then come back and do another 8 minutes like it's nothing. Like he's just so he's seasoned at it, man. It was cool to like kind of get to know somebody that way, kind of first, and get to know his music, and I've done some production with him, and we have a little project that we've been, you know, messing with over the last couple of years, but we need to kind of revisit, and it's cool, man. And then the write up is a project with Eli Fowler and Mika Sun that we've been doing over the last few years, and is a really fun project, man. It's predominantly them two on tracks, but it has features on a there's like 4 or 5 tracks that have other features on there. MC Problematics on the Resonance single that we put out over the winter, and then we have Mike Lee playing cello on a few tracks. Rest in peace. We have our boy David Pounds, MC Pounds. He's on there. Yeah, I mean it's a real cool project. On the next single that's coming out is with Rebecca Fisher, female vocalist who puts a verse on it and does the hook and stuff, and she's super cool. I'm excited to get that out. We got a music video for that too. That's coming out next month. Hopefully, the plan is May 6th, as long as all the digital platforms and everything work it out by then, which they should. But yeah, that project is really fun. I'm real proud of it. Production by me, Swizlo, and Galen Davis, G Davis, and it's cool. It's like these guys, both Eli and Mika, are like at such a high level right now with their bars, like, and they've both been doing music together for 20 years, and then I've been working with them for at least almost that, you know what I mean? So it's like, we've both been doing our thing for a while, and it's at like they're both at such a high level that their bar levels are awesome, and it's good. It's like some good brain food, this album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's some good stuff to listen to. There's a lot of personal stuff in there, and there's some bars in there. And the beats are a bunch of it composed by Swizz. It's just ridiculous. Super thankful to be a part of this one for sure.
And now that one's dropping this summer.
Yeah, the goal for that is June, June or July for the whole album. We have this next singles beginning of May, and then we have two more singles that we want to put out, and then either end of June or early July have the whole album out.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's what's up.
Yeah, so it's like we've tried at least every month or every other month have a new song come out until the whole album comes out, beginning of the summer.
Nice. I love seeing the community artists, dope artists like you guys in the community come together for a project like that. And then to really show the talents that you guys have on even dialing down the releases of the singles. Like, it's planned, you know what I mean? Like, you guys have everything like well laid out, you know what I mean? Like, that's dope.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's planned, but then everything doesn't always go to plans. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we originally wanted to have them like every every month come out, and then some things happen, and then like you listen to a mix for a bit, and then there's something that you just want to change last minute, that you got to, and then it happened with me with this last song. Like, I was pretty happy with the mix. Everyone was happy with it. It was all pretty cool, but then like I just kept on listening to it in my car and being like, that hi-hat needs to be changed. And it was just that one hi-hat that just kept on messing with me. I had to just go in and touch it up and then send it back to mastering and be like, touch this up. And now it's just pushed it back a little bit, but it's the way I want it and the way I feel better about it, and it gives us a little bit more time to promote for it, and so it goes, you know what I mean? Sometimes you got to deal with that. But there is, you got to have goals that you at least shoot for and set, because if you don't, keeping it vague will stuff will never come out. And that's been a bit of my own problem, I think, over the years, is that I would kind of keep the dates kind of vague and keep like my goals a little bit more vague, like, oh, we'll just keep on making songs, and then whenever we'll put this shit out or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's cool sometimes, but like if you want to see consistent progress, it's good to like set little markers, you know, of where you want to get stuff done by and get stuff out by, and when are you going to be mixing, and when you know, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. That maturity like took me a while to get to, you know, and I feel like doing video kind of helped that process a little bit, because you know, you start to see the whole process from the beginning of the song to the video to the promotion of the video.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like all that stuff needs to get done, but like that last, you know, bit of it is the stuff that I didn't know about. You know what I mean? And going through the video process kind of like helped figuring out how to get the visuals out there. You know,
Yeah.
and now we're able to be a little bit more methodical and have an idea how long things are going to take and how, you know, all that, because it's, you know, it's something you do learn in the process, so you got to kind of run through it a few times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'm thankful where we're at now. We have a ton of music that we're ready to put out, and we're getting ahead of the curve as far as finishing stuff and planning the dates, and you know what I mean, and where it's not like we were just so far behind. We had so much stuff to work on, but it's all coming together now, and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming out of this area in the next like year or so that I've been a part of, and that even my friends are doing that I haven't been a part of. But like, it's a lot of cool music around here.
Yeah. That's for real. I've seen, heard a lot of different things that's going to be coming 2022, man. I'm looking forward to it. You're working on, and it fits the, you know, because there's a whole thing. There's the video archive of like what's been happening around here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like you've already put in a lot of work on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a camera, you know. I mean, I've had a good digital camera since like 2010 or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I've, you know, I wasn't the video guy back in the 2000s and stuff. My boy Blair Schatz was always the video guy. He always had a camcorder, and he's got tons of footage from all the old Freestyle King stuff and all the old stuff back then, and a little bit from the Subsap stuff too. But the the video side of it for me has been in like the last 12 to 15 years, you know what I mean? Um, and I do have a bunch of stuff from that. Um, but like what I've gotten, you know, I guess the most experience on is editing now too. So like being able to like storyboard out stuff and take all this old stuff and turn it into stuff is what I'm, you know, figuring out how to do. And it's been a fun process, you know?
Yeah. That's going to be dope because there's been, you know, we've talked about on this podcast with me interviewing Swizz, having Knack on, having Eli on, and now you know, there's so much dope history around the hip hop community and the culture that you guys have created. And so, like, I think that it's something that deserves to be highlighted. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, but me and Swizz have talked about it for years about doing like a bit of a documentary about, you know, our paths that we've done, and then all the network that comes off of that, you know, and in some cases, then some of the people that we didn't, you know, we didn't work as much with, but we're doing things at the same time, you know. And so it's like it's something that, you know, we've always wanted to do, but it's, you know, it's, I guess it hasn't been made priority when it really comes down to it. But also, you know, I never had this, you know, cameras, and I never had the editing knowledge and all that stuff. All the pieces have kind of like come together that kind of help it. And, you know, and like, even like you being somebody who's been documenting all this stuff too, like becoming a wealth of knowledge about that stuff too, like having all the people that can kind of help pull something like that together, you know, is something that I'm excited to work on. And you know, I'd like for you to be a part of that as well, and like we can kind of like pull you know, put all our brains together and make some cool documentation of what, you know, some of this history is. I mean, you're obviously doing it here, and then to take it a step further into a bit of a documentary is one of my goals as well. It's there's some cool history there, and it, you know, I feel like it's inspiring, and it has been inspiring for some people, but it's also like the cool side of it is like this is like everyone kind of considers Humboldt kind of like sort of the middle of nowhere in a sense. You know what I mean? It's super remote. And the people around here have been super good at being able to like make something out of not much. You know what I mean? Like I said, like we used to throw parties on like a dirt field. You know what I mean? And pull up a generator and build a stage and make a party and make music, and people would experience it and have a great time, and people needed that. Everybody needs that. And like the resourcefulness of Humboldt people is like a pretty amazing thing. That independent side that we touched on this a bit with how you kind of end up wearing many hats when you live out here, because there's less people doing stuff, so you got to figure out how to fix things in your house. You got to figure out how to wire your studio. You got to figure sometimes you got to figure that shit out, because there might not be anybody around to like do it, or cost a bunch of money to make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to be able to just push forward yourself and see things, happen and make progress yourself sometimes, because around here, it's like, I think that one of the things I really admire is that the collaboration between, like you're talking about, between yourself, Eli, Mika, MCP over the years, Galen Davis, who's still doing things in the music scene around here, and of course Swizz is, right? Like, you guys really broke the mold, I think, in that. I think like in bigger cities, it's more of a rat race, and there's just more people doing it, right? And so the volume is just, it makes it more of that rat race. And like that energy, it may be in Humboldt, but like you guys have shown people that that's not what Humboldt's about. Humboldt's about community and like repping, the culture properly. And I think you guys have done that.
It's awesome to hear. I mean, I think my crew especially like have a very natural way to like create and be inspired to create. I feel like a lot of these dudes that we worked with in Subsab, and a lot of the people that we worked with from around here, some of these dudes are going to do this regardless. If they're by themselves in a room, or if, you know what I'm saying? Like it's real. It's real in the best sense of it. It's like and I think that's part of what I've definitely attached to and appreciated. And it's not about the fame for most people. It's not about the like accolades. It's just people like writing bars with their friends because the songs help their friends, their other friends, and their friends, and then they help themselves cope. And they, it's like there's like so many levels to like why a lot of I feel like a lot of my friends make music, and the doing the shows and doing all this other stuff is like definitely a bonus. But I feel like a lot of them do it because it's like a part of their therapy, and it's a part of who they are, and that's awesome, and you get that everywhere. Definitely, there's people that do that everywhere, but like a lot of the people I got to work with, thankfully, their approach to creativity is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I feel like personally the quality of things coming out of Humboldt is a step above, and I think that folks like you, Swizz, that have laid on a sound level that groundwork for the community, for a lot of different folks to,
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, you guys have put a lot of people on, and I mean that's something, man. That's not, I haven't seen. I've only seen so much of that in Humboldt County, folks that have stayed consistent, rep the culture and the community like you guys have, and are still doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I love that about Humboldt County.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's like a wealth of talent, and the thing, like, I mean, especially with Swizz, like he's been playing for 20 something years around here, 25 years around here, and with a million different bands and a million different styles and genres, and it's just his skill level. He's at like some of the top of his game, and getting better, and it's like, I mean, I went to an Object Heavy show last night where he was just shredding. I mean, everybody in that whole band is just ridiculously nice with it. you know, and it's all from a lot of those guys have been like putting in work for a bit, you know, and now it's like they're starting to be like, oh, these guys got some skill, and it's like, yeah, they've been at skill, but now they practice like crazy, and they played 1,000,000 shows, and they, you know what I mean, and it's like all that, you know, it's that 10,000 hours starts getting hit by people, and it's people start getting, you know, next level, you know, it's
Yeah.
real cool to see.
Yeah, that's dope. That was down in Soham.
Yeah, at Stone Junction.
Nice.
Yeah, they're doing a tour with Apollo Sons, I think is the name of the other band that they're playing with, which were real cool too. And yeah, man, they were just killing it. I got some footage after this.
That's what's up.
Yeah, man.
Man, so like I was saying earlier, you know, I know that we've only hit on just like a portion of the history and the foundation that you've laid down for the culture around here. And so, you know, I'm trying to get you on for multiple episodes,
Yeah,
you know, moving forward, you know.
I'm down for sure, for sure.
Dope.
I think it would be cool to come in here one of the times with Swizz or with Eli or with wherever, you know, and just have a couple of us all talk story. There's plenty, and you know how it is, like somebody will bring up a story that you haven't thought about in years, and then all of a sudden you remember some side of it that they don't know about, or you know, there's a lot of funny history there.
Heck yeah. That's dope, man. I'm definitely stoked to have you guys back in the studio to lay it down, because I think that as more people come to this area, right, because of the university becoming Cal Poly and everything, there's going to be a lot of kids there, a lot of students that are coming in from other areas that are most likely into hip hop. And so they're going to be going out to shows, seeing you know what I mean, seeing Eli. And so they're going to want to know the background about what you guys have been doing. And so that's going to be, you know, at least in audio form, we've got the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. I'm looking forward to supporting what you got going and the East Branch Media.
I'm with it, and you know, I have a couple cameras, and I can only carry one and set up one tripod, so I'm definitely could use another camera guy sometime too if you want to hold the camera. And
that's what's up.
Actually, speaking of, we're doing a Fat Bull Cypher at the Epitome Gallery at the end of the month, and I might have to pass you a camera to hold for that.
Oh, you got it. That's dope. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there.
To start with that for sure, because we got a song with Knack One that's on the Write Up album that you know, that I produced and did cuts on and stuff, and I want to get we want to get some footage for that, because we want it to be more of like a hip hop cypher kind of b-boy kind of vibe with this video.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's dope.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to the Epitome Gallery.
Yeah. Shout out Julia.
Yeah, and you know, Fat Bull Clothing, Brian Swizzlow putting it on.
Yeah. Swizz, Noonan.
Yeah. Man, well, you know, I appreciate your time. Like I said, I want the folks to know that you guys are going to be looking forward to more episodes with DJ Just One. So stay on the lookout. What's other than maybe like the write up, which is coming? I guess that's probably like the most pressing like thing you got coming out in the short term right now, right?
Yeah. As far as music, the main project and focus has been the write up. I have other projects that I'm working on and recording. There's an instrumental project with Swizzlow that we have. That's just all instrumental beats with me and Swizz.
Oh, dope.
That we're going to be putting out hopefully in the next month or two, have the first single. Oh, you know, and then we're just going to put out a bunch of singles, and then we have like, me and Swizz have a bunch of beats together. So like, we're just looking for places to put all of them, and some we're putting them on leasing websites, and some we're putting out on the internet as like our releases, and some we're using for compilation stuff. So there's like a bunch of stuff that's sort of in the works. I have a compilation that I'm working on that's like a hip hop and reggae compilation that I have 5 songs done for, that are really cool collaborations with like a hip hop artist, reggae artist together.
Oh man.
And that I'm real excited about.
And we're talking reggae artists from around here?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah. Like
man.
I've won with like Gappy Ranks and Eli Fowler. I've won with like Abstract Rude, Micah Nine, Rocker T, and Mika Sun.
Oh whoa.
And then I have this is my one of the illest ones too. I have Ishi Doobie,
Yeah.
and I have Ishi Doobie with Gift the Gab, Charlie Tuna, and Rashawn Ahmad
On a track?
on a track. Yeah,
What? That's crazy.
yeah. It's a big tune, man. It's called Love Is Universal. It's an amazing track. Probably one of the last ones that Gab did.
Oh
It's a
man.
heavy track, man. It's beautiful. I'm looking to get that out this summer too. So, and that's just like a single that I'm doing. That I'm I'm you know putting out on off that compilation. But it's
That's
really
heat.
cool. Yeah, and it has Artist Pablo on Melodica on it too, who is like Augustus Pablo's son, the melodica
Mm.
player.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the I've like grew up in a lot of hip hop, and then coming to Humboldt, I got into a lot of reggae, and I've always been into reggae, but like I've always had a homie that would play the reggae, on a different level than me. So I would do DJ most of the hip hop, and my boy would do most of the reggae.
Nice.
And then now, like I play a lot of reggae, and just I kind of like learned a lot from California culture. Knows a lot about reggae, and it's big in a lot of places out here. So taught me a lot about it, and I always wanted to do a compilation that was that, had a little bit of both flavors in there.
That's dope. That's definitely Humboldt energy right there, man.
Yeah, I'm real excited about this project.
I mean, I don't know if I may be wrong. I just can't think of off the top of my head somebody who's brought together those communities that are so strong around here, hip hop and reggae, right? We
Hmm.
got a lot of hip hop
Yeah.
artists and some dope reggae artists.
Well, like not on a local sense. It's happened in Def Jam put out like a couple albums that were like hip hop and reggae kind of mashups, and there's been some people that have like done that where they've uh, Salam Remy has got a few songs where he produced that are like really sick that have hip hop and reggae together, and it's been done around on on different levels, but it's just something that I've always wanted to do in a way of like integrating a lot of the local people that I know into like tracks with other artists that we end up like collaborating with a lot too,
Yep.
and the fact that I DJ and do a lot of like reggae shows as well kind of puts me in contact with a lot of reggae artists, and a lot of reggae artists will come through Southern Humboldt. It's being the weed sort of capital of around here, or maybe not of all of Humboldt, but just Humboldt being the weed capital. It brings a lot of artists up here, and then they seem to always stop through Southern Humboldt, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to be able to like be like, yo, I got a studio. You want to put a verse? I'll hook you up to do a verse or whatever. And that's kind of how a lot of them collaborations started.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think independently you have to like try to support artists, like try to help people get shows, and then from them getting shows, you do collaborations musically, and it all kind of like ends up coming together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that because that's something that Swizz hit on too, is that we do get dope, international acts, right? That come and visit. We just had, just for instance, like Kabaka Pyramid reggae
Yeah.
artist just visited,
Yeah.
right? Like LG Productions just had him on,
Mhm.
and then I'm following on Instagram, and LG's going live, and we're seeing like Kabaka Pyramid like video shoot that's happening here in Humboldt.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
And so I'm just like, wow, man, like that kind of stuff happens. And so it's cool to see what you and Swizz have done to when dope acts do come to the area that are, from outside the area, right? Like Charlie Tuna,
Mhm.
you guys are putting folks on. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like that's really dope to see.
Yeah, I mean it's something that like I'm always thankful to be a part of. I think like if you're like a independent artist too, it helps to be able to, if you could be a part of a show that like a bigger artist is on, and you could open up the show and help promote it, and be, you know what I mean, like pay a little dues, and pay respect. Like, of course, these big names are going to be the headliners and stuff, and you're just the opener and stuff. But you pay those dues and you build relationships, because building relationships, as you know, is like how your network spreads and how you're able to get more of your music out there, and that's ultimately the bottom line. What the goal is.
That's right. That's right. That's dope, man. I'm so thankful that I could get you in the studio right now to drop down this, like dope picture of what you've done. And I mean, it's spanned coast to coast. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Nika. That's yeah, New York to Cali, man. And, I'm thankful that I was able to spend this much of my life in both places, and it's helped a lot of my perspective, especially on a music level, because there's, uh, we grew up in the '90s of like stigmatisms between like East Coast and West Coast stuff, and like there's plenty of people on the East Coast that never wanted to ever listen to any West Coast stuff, and there was times I like was like, like it, if it was from the West Coast, it like had to be the most hitting shit, and I was probably had that prejudice too, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? But then coming out here and experiencing it and being like, nah, there's good and bad in everything. There's dope West Coast style that like I might not have like grew up listening to, but like when you see it done right and you feel it right, it just hits different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to like kind of like come up with beats that have influences from both sides, it feel like it benefits me, and I think like a lot of the people I work with like to mess with it.
Yeah. That's really dope. I just haven't met a producer myself that has roots on the East Coast like that and like real cred, and then came out here, fleshed it out even more, and then like I said, has come to Humboldt and
Mhm.
really supported the culture. Like that's just something that's really dope. I think it's remarkable.
No, that's awesome to hear that. I'm thankful to be a part of it, man, for sure.
Well, like I said, I'm looking forward to the write up. I'm definitely looking forward to. You said you got that project with Swizz coming out, the
Hmm.
instrumental project. I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, man.
Um, yeah, it's gonna be a dope 2022.
Yeah, man. I'm like I said, I'm really excited to get this stuff out there and for people to listen to this stuff, because it's a big part of our life and it's helped us, and I think like music ultimately helps a lot of people, and it's like it branches out as a network to everything.
hmm And I think right now, man, people really need that connection to music to
Yes,
ground you. You know.
for sure. You see it like when now there's been some shows and some things, and the people are just like really making sure they enjoy the music when it's out.
hmm
It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's been good.
Well,
Well, thanks, Just One. I appreciate you, man.
for sure, man. Thanks for having me, man. I'm
Yeah.
down to come by some other time too, for sure.